Hello, everyone. We're just taking a few minutes as everybody settles in. A couple of housekeeping rules. Please mute your phone, mute yourself, and then if I've been instructed as well as if you could turn your camera off. But thank you. We're very excited to have everybody here. This is the Pomona Reimagining second session on a year-long series that we plan to release. And thank you everybody for attending today. I believe we have more than 100 people registered.
We have 121, and I don't know, there might have been more people that came in from yesterday. So hello, Dr. Cobb. Good to see you.
Just so everybody gets an idea of what we'll be expecting. We'll have an opening session where we hope to get your juices flowing to encourage you on this session, which is on health and wellness. And then we will move to our three panelists who will be present, and they're going to do their presentation, and then they will entertain questions from the audience. And then again, please remember to mute yourself. It is a large group, and save your comments and questions for the chat.
Special note on the tie of the mayor looking good.
I had a Metro board meeting that lasted almost 7 hours, so I didn't get a chance to get into some comfortable clothes, but I think this is probably the appropriate outfit for this gathering. So
wow.
Great to see everyone.
Wow. Thank you for being here after that grueling session.
7 hours, holy moly.
And you thought that the meetings in your first 2 years were long.
I blame that mayor for the long city council meeting, so I bear full responsibility.
I'm assuming that we're still getting people coming in. So again, just a bit of housekeeping. Welcome. We'll be talking about health and wellness today. If you could please mute yourself, it is a large group, and if you could save your comments and questions for the chat, and then we'll have an opening session, and then you'll have 3 breakout panelist presentations.
And Victor, I think we can start because it's 6:31. I think we should get this party started.
Well, thank you very much, Julia. I'll start off again with a hello, everybody. Welcome. This is a Pomona Reimagine second session on a year-long series that will be presented. Thank you for joining. I believe our registered number was about 120 people. And I'll go over the housekeeping again. We're going to have an opening session, encourage everybody about health and wellness, and then we will move to a 3-panelist session where you'll hear a presentation, and then you'll have Q&A. Please remember to mute yourself. I've also been told if you could please turn off your camera, as it is a very large group, and then save your comments and questions for the chat. Want to tell everybody a little bit about what came about the Pomona Reimagining on the first session that we had back in November. We've been able to have a couple of things that started off and have now moved forward. Number one is the Pomona Sustainable Food Alliance has begun organizing an urban harvest program, which to date has provided more than 500 pounds of fresh fruit to Lopez Urban Farm. And then Lopez Urban Farm has been doing a weekly market box program on Thursdays. Purpose Church has been working with the Lopez Farm to support better food distribution, as well as God's Pantries distribution. And it's updating their sign-up procedures, translating them to Spanish, and making the process more user-friendly and accessible to more people as well. The third is the Community Communication Network initiative is underway with 2 technical experts and several groups participating. There will be an hour-long demonstration in early April, and it's called From Streetwise App. And then for consideration as a platform for this project, if you're interested in observing the demonstration or following the progress of this initiative, please contact Michael Whitmer at michael.whitmer@cobb.institute. And Michael, I'm not sure if you could share that into the chat, just so everybody gets a nice little read on that, and they can note it down as easy as possible. Now to introduce our first speaker today from our very own city of Pomona. And I'm not sure if you got a chance to hear, but he was recently elected to the LA County Metro Board. And it's an amazing big board right there. And I know it's gonna help the city of Pomona in many, many ways. He was the former director of Bright Prospect, the person who isn't afraid to roll up their sleeves to deliver food directly to residents' houses here in Pomona, or clean up any corner or alley or any space, and so much more. My very great humble friend, Mr. Mayor Tim Sandoval. Welcome.
Councilmember Preciado, thank you so much for that very, very nice introduction. I appreciate it. Hey, it's great to see everyone. I see so many familiar faces. Just want to thank the organizers for this convening, and to just thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a few words. I'm so honored to serve as the mayor of the city of Pomona. You know, we have lived through one of the most challenging times in our history. For all of you who have experienced great personal and economic sacrifices and loss, we stand with you. And please, please know that we care. But thankfully, in Pomona, these are also times for great hope and opportunity. I'm so inspired, one, by seeing all of you, but I'm also inspired to see so many individuals, organizations, and institutions from all parts of our city come together over the past year in the spirit of partnership, innovation, reimagination, and this word that is so important, equity, compassion, and a deep commitment to making a better future for Pomona and its residents. It is an honor for me to work alongside all of you to make our city stronger. This evening is another example of all of us coming together as individuals and organizations to create a path for happiness and wellness in Pomona that will make life better for us now and into the future. I want to thank all of you for being here to build this path together. I also want to thank Pomona Reimagining for their strong leadership and invitation, as I expressed earlier, to bring us together in the spirit of partnership. I want to applaud all of Pomona Reimagining partners, vital sponsors, the Latina and Latina Roundtable, University of Laverne, Cobb Institute, Agenda for Prophetic Faith, Public Bank Pomona Valley, Progressive Christians Uniting, of course, the City of Pomona, and Compassionate Pomona. And if I could just give a nice little plug to the wonderful people who have been a part of the COVID-19 Action Committee, who've been working every week to make sure that our families are being taken care of. Thank you to them as well. And I want to give my own virtual, I don't know that I've ever done this before. I don't know that I've done a virtual standing ovation, but I think we're going to try here. I want to give my own virtual standing ovation to Western University of Health Sciences. And of course, I see the Honorable Jeff Keating. For whatever reason, I always see you on my screen, Jeff. I'm not sure why. They're one of the Pomona's vital anchor institutions. They're one of Pomona's, I should say, they're certainly one of our key institutions. And this evening, they have stepped forward to offer their wisdom, leadership, and invitation to partner as we create the path to happiness and wellness. So on behalf of all of us, Western University, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for being partners in this effort. Again, I want to thank you for being here. I look forward to what springs from this. And now I give the stage back to the honorable council member from District 2, Mr. Victor Preciado from the city of Pomona. Thank you so much, everyone.
Well, seeing quiet happening.
Victor, is this where we do the duet?
That's all
is this where
right.
we sing?
Well, Tim, I think we've been practicing, but I don't know, maybe we'll release that for your state of the city.
So thank you, Mayor Sandoval, and thank you, Councilmember Preciado, for the introduction. And I'm your warm-up. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Julie Wheeler. I work at the University of Laverne. I'm a part of this Pomona Reimagining and Restorative Practices Collaborative in Pomona and Agenda for the Prophetic Faith. And we want this webinar to not only be interesting, but to be useful. We want you to walk away with ways to be healthier individually, but also create more community health. Today, we look at building a path to happiness and health. This past year has driven home a concept that has been often said: we are all connected. Never before have I seen my health connected to your health, connected to my community's health, connected to global health in a way that's so evident. Come to find out, my health is not just a me thing. National Geographic has done an extensive study spanning the globe, looking for communities who live the longest with very little illness. They found 5 communities. These 5 places had more centenarians, more people who lived to 100, than their neighboring communities. And those centenarians were still motorbiking, dancing, cooking, gardening, and driving until their late older age. These longevity spots are called blue zones. Extensive study has been done to see what is unique to these places, but more importantly for us, what are the commonalities that are found in that community? So let's do a little quiz. You ready to do a little quiz? Because I know you're probably thinking, well, those people just must be born that way. It's all in their genes. Well, so here's the quiz. I want you to take a guess and put the number that you think is the right number in the chat. Okay, get your chat function ready. Genes determine what percentage of how long a person lives. Genes determine how long an average person lives. Okay, someone said 10%, 60%, 20%. Keep them coming. 110, 20, 75, 5, 20. Great. Okay. So the Danish twin study established that only about 10 to 20% of how long the average person lives is determined by genes. So what the blue zone study was looking at was lifestyle and environment, which, if you're a mathematician, contributes to 80 to 90% of your longevity. They found 9 common denominators. Are you interested in finding out what those are? In Sardinia, Italy, they found the longest living men on the planet. Men's longevity kept pace with women's in this far off the beaten path area. One family of 9 siblings said they had eaten minestrone soup every single day of their life. This pot of goodness, made of vegetables, beans, savory herbs, blended together to create a longevity promoting highly nutritious meal. And they drank that meal, with that meal, a small glass of red wine. They found in 4 of the 5 blue zones, moderate wine consumption promoted longevity. Wine is always enjoyed with a meal, with friends, and in moderation. Another point to note, family, another common denominator. Those who invest time in family can add up to 6 years of life. Nicoya, Costa Rica, is another area of great longevity. This is the place where, after chopping wood and clearing brush away from his house, Don Faustino makes sure he walks to the store to buy special ingredients for his family's Sunday dinner. He stops and he makes a special purchase of pan dulce, sweet bread, which he says is his son's favorite. His son is 79 years old. Don Faustino is 99. The Nicoyans exhibit what is called a plan de vida, or life's purpose, another common denominator. Nicoyans have a life of little stress and mainly eat the same foods day in and day out, which is good for their immunity markers. As a matter of fact, the longest lived Nicoyans are the poorest, surviving on beans, tortillas, chilero, and black coffee. They have tight-knit families, hard work, and strong faith. So let's take another quiz. If you have a strong sense of purpose, it can add up to how many years of your life? Let's put it in chat. If you have a strong sense of purpose, how many years will that add to your life? Oh, good, we got some 50. Someone said 50. I like that. The answer is 7 years get added to your life. So now back to faith. Each one of the Blue Zones communities has a strong emphasis in faith. Another common denominator. In Sardinia, it's the Catholic Church, but in Okinawa, it's the strong ancestor worship. This island off the coast of Japan is among the longest lived and healthiest people on the planet. They reach the age of 100 at the rate of 3 times that Americans do and suffer a 1/5 the rate of the heart disease. And they live about 7 good years longer. What is their secret? As they, as with other communities, focus their plate around plants. They eat very little meat. So here's another game. It's called real or fake. I'm going to say a sentence and you're going to react with a thumbs up for real and a thumbs down for fake. You can do it with your reactions, or you can turn on your screen, or you can type in the chat. Real or fake? Ready? Real or fake? The Okinawans have a don't get fat prayer that they say before each meal. Real or fake? The Okinawans have a don't get fat prayer. Okay, real, fake, we're kind of mixed here. The answer is real. It's called Hari Hachi Bu. And this is a prayer that they say that helps them push away from the table at 80% full. They are underweight in comparison to the rest of Japan by 10%. Here's another one, real or fake. The longest lived Okinawans are found out in the countryside happily alone. Real or fake? The longest lived Okinawans are found out in the countryside happily alone. Real or fake? This is fake. This is fake. One of the interesting parts of this culture is the formation of the moai, which roughly translates into meeting for a common purpose. Children are placed into a small moai and live their entire lives connected to this small group. The moai take care of each other, sharing abundance with each other. They joke, they laugh, and they support each other. This points to another one of the common denominators, belonging. Humans need to be part of something. Belonging to a faith community as a regular attendee has been shown to lengthen one's life by 4 to 14 years. Then there are the Greeks. In Icaria, Greece, the inhabitants live a happy, low-stress life. They wake up late, they go to work late, they take a little nap, they stay up late with friends and family, they walk to work, they garden, they add many types of herbs to their cooking, they eat very little meat and enjoy hummus, wine, and cheese daily. The Icarians exemplify an important piece to the puzzle: downshifting. Each one of the Blue Zone communities takes time to relax and unwind. This helps the body repair. So I know what you're thinking. Oh, those Greeks, the Costa Ricans, the Japanese, the Italians are all these places far, far away outside of the hubbub of the city. How does that affect me? The last blue zone that they found is a small community found here in Southern California off the 10 freeway, home of the Seventh-day Adventist in Loma Linda. You have all heard the adage, cleanliness is next to godliness. Here the markers, here the Adventists say, healthiness is next to godliness. The markers that give Adventists a long disease-free life are vegetarianism, nut eating, non-smoking, physically active, and they maintain a normal body weight, which is another common denominator. The dairy eating vegetarians run on average 16 pounds less than the average American, and the vegan Adventists run about 32 pounds less. This has a huge impact on cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, blood cholesterol, and inflammation. There you have it. The 5 communities that are the longest lived in the world and their common denominators: downshifting, purpose, plant eating, wine, family first, moderate eating, moving naturally, and belonging. So I want to leave you with a little longevity song about a food that each one of the communities eats. Beans, beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. Have you ever heard that? You can finish the rest of the song. You probably know it. So I hope we can build a path to happiness and health together. And now I give you Jeff Keating from Western University.
The more you toot, the better you feel. So let's have beans with every meal.
With every meal.
I'll wrap that up, Julie. Thank you, Julie. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Keating. I'm the Chief of Community and Government Affairs, and it's my privilege to introduce our speakers tonight, all 3 of them. Each of them will speak individually for several minutes, and then when all 3 are done with their presentations, they're going to have sort of a group chat where their different areas will intersect, and that'll be your opportunity as attendees of our webinar to ask them questions. And we ask when that time comes that you put your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to get as many of those to our group and see how they can best answer those. So our speakers tonight are, we'll begin with Dr. Robin Dreibelbis. Dr. Dreibelbis is the chair and associate professor in the Department of Family Medicine, as well as the chief wellness officer at Western University of Health Sciences College of Osteopathic Medicine, the Pacific Northwest, which is in Lebanon, Oregon. So Robin is coming to us from Lebanon tonight. As an osteopathic physician, she cares for patients and teaches students using the foundational tenets of the osteopathic profession, one of which is that the body has an inherent ability to heal itself if given the opportunity. Believing that students need to have a deep foundational knowledge about the integral connection between nutrition and human health, she started a lecture series in 2011 that's called Nutrition in Medicine, that goes on to this day, offering lectures presented by physicians and nutrition experts on various topics regarding the intimate connection between nutrition and human health. As Chief Wellness Officer at Comp Northwest, she teaches a course that bridges the basic sciences with clinical medicine. And in her role, all of her roles at Comp Northwest, she expands on her lifelong passion for nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle medicine. Dr. Dreibelbis will be followed by Dr. David Barron. Dr. Barron is the Senior Vice President and Provost of Western University of Health Sciences. He's been involved with addiction medicine research and education for more than 40 years. He's served as medical director at a number of addiction treatment programs, including the Horsham Clinic, Malibu Beach Recovery Center, and the Clara Matrix Foundation. Dr. Barron has taught addiction medicine to healthcare graduate students for more than 30 years. He's been a doping control officer in the world of elite sports since 1983, and he continues to be active in that field. While he was Deputy Clinical Director of the National Institute of Mental Health, he was appointed and served on the Drug-Free Workplace Legislation Senior Task Force under President Reagan. And our third presenter tonight is Dr. Dennis Wallstrom. Dr. Wallstrom seeks the big picture when collaborating on life's problems. He has extensive training and experience in clinical psychology, forensic psychology, and spirituality and ministry. and applies a range of specific interventions proven to create relief and positive change for particular issues. A graduate of the School of Psychology at Fuller Theological Seminary, he draws together resources from his background in science, relational exploration, and faith and spirituality. Dr. Wallstrom believes that although personal pain might have much to teach us, we are more attentive learners when we find relief for our bodies, clarity for our minds, joy in our relationships, and peace for our spirits. He strives to find the most direct route to relief from pain and to the wisdom we might gain in the process. So I'm very much looking forward, as I'm sure you all are, to hearing from our speakers, and we'll start with Dr. Drybelbis. Take it away, Robin.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Wow, what an introduction. Much appreciated. And thank you all for inviting me to join you this evening. I really commend the work as I listen more to the leaders of this process in Pomona Reimagining. I just commend you for the work that you're doing and endeavoring to do to come together, because it's the things that create momentum, right, are people with a common vision that come together and are moving in the same direction. And that's what I see as I learn more about Pomona Reimagining. And so, like Jeff said, I am Robin Drybelbis. I'm a proud osteopathic physician and alumnus of the College of Osteopathic Medicine of the Pacifics. So I spent quite a number of years in the early 90s in Pomona and got to know the town. And as I go back today and am on campus, it's almost as if you don't recognize it because of the amazing steps forward that Pomona, as well as Western University of Health Sciences, has made. Actually, I was in the last graduating class of COMP before it became Western University of Health Sciences in 1996. And then I moved up to Oregon, Portland, Oregon, to do my residency, and then practiced family medicine, full scope family medicine, inpatient, delivered babies, and had a special interest in sports medicine. And so I practiced sports medicine for about 13 years after I finished my residency. And then the leaders of Western University of Health Sciences had this vision that they wanted to expand the medical school up to a small town in Oregon, literally right in my backyard. This small town was called Lebanon, Oregon. And when I say small, I actually mean small. In fact, in 2011, we opened the doors, sat our first class of students at the medical school at Comp Northwest. And so in that summertime before we began, there was like one of those scramble golf tournaments, and I was paired with the Chamber of Commerce, the president of the Chamber of Commerce of Lebanon. And so I just asked her, I said, how many people are actually in Lebanon, this small town? And she said, about 15,000. And I said, oh my goodness, I thought it was closer to 10,000. And she said, well, you know, it's about 11,000, but 15,000 sounds so much bigger. And so this was truly a small town. And when we opened our doors, the leaders of both Western University of Health Sciences and specifically on site at Comp Northwest, they didn't just want to exist in this small town of Lebanon. They really wanted to become a part of Lebanon and really to make a positive difference. And so to that end, the dean gathered the faculty together to figure out how we could actually make a positive impact on our community. And way back in the day, in 2011, that small group of faculty actually fit around one single table. We've grown since then, but we put our heads together and we were starting to talk about health and wellness and that being a pillar of what we wanted to do and the kind of the stamp on the community that we wanted to impart. And so we started talking about something on the opposite end of the spectrum, which is disease. And so heart attacks and strokes and the like, and the risk factors that lend towards these chronic diseases that we're also accustomed to thinking are just part of our normal aging process. And we know that there are risk factors to heart attacks and strokes and other cardiovascular disease because of a study that was done in Framingham, Massachusetts. It was called the Framingham Heart Study. And it was all about the risk factors, and you could all name them off: high blood pressure and obesity and high cholesterol and smoking and the like. And so we wanted to do the exact opposite. And rather than the Framingham Heart Study, we wanted to create something called the Lebanon Health Study. And what Julia just talked about, the blue zones, the 9 commonalities amongst all of those 5 communities across the world that were then named the blue zones. If you're interested in why they're called the blue zones, I can share that with you later on. But those are the things that we wanted to focus on. And I have been teaching my patients for decades about what I called Robbins' 5 no-brainer rules to health and wellness. And basically they encompass those 9 commonalities, which I thought was kind of cool. And so, but what we decided, we were new to the community, and we knew that in order to change your external environment, you really had to self-reflect on what we were doing internally. And so from that conversation, we really decided and endeavored to create a culture of wellness on our campus. And that has become and evolved into this program that we have. And program sounds like it has a start point and an end point. And the life that we live, we want those 2 points of interest to be as far apart as possible. So really it's a culture, and it's a way of life, a lifestyle, if you will. And we named this thing, this culture, something called MEDWELL, and it's an acronym, and it stands for mindfulness, exercise, and diet through work, engagement, and lifelong living. And so we actually took a page from the Blue Zones playbook, and in order to make change, right, you have to put it in people's face. And so that's what we did. The Blue Zone says you have to make the healthy choice the easy choice. And so we use that MEDWELL acronym to create daily, weekly, and monthly experiences that are just part of the mantra and the cadence of life on campus. And we focus on
a Fulbright scholar, was looked at the biology of happiness. Everyone studies depression. I figured I wanted to do something differently. So I've been interested in studying what makes us happy. What is it about people that allows us to be happy, and what's happening in the brain that we can focus on, and as opposed to treating depression, focus on having people be happy. And when I was listening to Julia's comments, when she said about those folks that were eating the same bowl of soup every day and lived to be 100, my first thought was they probably only lived to 50, but it felt like they were 100, having to eat the same damn bowl of soup every day. So part of what life is variety and enjoying things. And I'd like to share just a few slides to keep within our 10-minute frame. And if Julie gets back, or if Robin gets back on, we can share with her. So this is, again, so stress and COVID, which I thought we were going to be talking a lot about here. You know, we've heard a lot about stress associated with COVID, but maybe too much. I know there's been some really interesting data that's actually shown there's a correlation between how much CNN you were watching during the height of the COVID and how depressed you felt. I think one of the things we need to do if we're going to focus on a path to health and happiness is to refocus a little bit. And again, what we heard in Julie's comments, which I thought were so important about looking at this from a global perspective, is what makes me happy? What makes me smile and laugh out loud? What do I really enjoy? So when we talk about people who live longer by having certain diets, one of the things that I found, and I've been very, very fortunate to have studied and continue to study all over the world, I do work with the World Health Organization, is understanding that what makes people happy is not a one size fits all. And we all know that. I'd be willing to bet those people who are eating beans every day enjoy eating beans. If they said that beans was the most disgusting food they ever ate, I'm not sure they'd live quite so long. So yes, diet and exercise are really important. We're going to talk just a few minutes about that. But what really, really matters is doing things that make you happy, make you feel in control, allow you to feel connected. And that's what I'm going to focus really all of my brief comments on a very simple kind of game plan, as it were. And I call it the A to G game plan. So the first A is be aware and acknowledge how you really feel. And this gets down to acknowledging that, you know, I'm really feeling stressed out, and I need to acknowledge that to myself and hopefully to others. But one of the things I think is very important on that A is acknowledging and being aware of how much you feel in control of your life. Studies on anxiety and depression that have gone on for over 30 years now have really demonstrated that as human beings and as animals, quite honestly, even if you're dealing with laboratory animals, that sense of being out of control is really a biological as well as a psychosocial stressor, whether it's out of control in our life, our relationships, our health, all the things that are going on. And if there's one thing that COVID did for just about everybody, is had us feel out of control. You know, could we go outside? Were we going to be infected? Were we going to bring the infection back to our loved ones? So I think being aware of, you know, what really allows it, how you're really feeling. And if you're feeling out of control at any level, that's something that we probably should and needs to be addressed. Breathing, we've heard about mindfulness, and it turns out that slow, relaxed, easy breathing, concentrating when you're breathing can be a wonderful way to relax and again, gain control of your life. The C in our A to G game is really the circulation. We've already heard about this, and that's really about getting up. The body is meant to move, and Robin talked about this. And when we're talking about moving, we're talking about getting your heart rate up to about 70-75% of its max and keeping it there for about 20 to 30 minutes, at least 3 times a week. Now, the key to this, and like Robin, I've been involved with sports psychiatry for a very long time, both in this country and abroad, is you have to like what you're doing. I learned the hard way many years ago that having someone just say, well, go out and get exercise, it really has to be enjoyable exercise. So if you hate to run, don't go out and become a runner. If you like to dance, if you like to garden, if you like to ride a bike, if you like to swim, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money joining a gym or getting a personal trainer. What you need to do, very simply, is find an exercise that you can do where your body is moving and it allows you to get your heart rate up, and have it be something that you literally look forward to doing every day. If you love chocolate, nobody has to tell you to think about, well, you should have a piece of chocolate every day. If you can't stand Brussels sprouts, you're probably going to have to figure out a way to get yourself motivated to eat them. If we enjoy something, and we can measure this in the brain, it activates parts of the brain that kind of reinforces behavior. And as Jeff mentioned, I've done a little bit of work over my career looking at addiction. And it turns out that we do something that either makes us feel good or takes pain away. That's called a negative reinforcer. So like if you take an aspirin and it makes the headache go away, that's negatively reinforced. You don't get high off it, but it takes away something bad. So that's what we have to do with exercise. The D is for diet, and we don't need to spend any time on that. I think that was really nicely covered by both Robin and Julia. And the key is a healthy diet, but I think it's also a diet that you really enjoy. Again, the idea of I can never have one of my favorite comfort foods is that can be somewhat stress-inducing itself, but we need to limit things, all things in moderation. You know, if you enjoy a good steak, I gave up, for the most part, red meat many years ago for health reasons. But once in a while, I'll go out, and if I'm going to have a steak, I'm going to make sure it's a really, really good one for maybe a special occasion. But again, a healthy diet, and a lot's been written about the Mediterranean diet and various diets. I think the key is to do something that follows good, healthy guidelines, but again, is something that's going to be enjoyable. You'll do it if you enjoy doing it. And if it's a real effort, chances are data would demonstrate that you're probably not going to continue the way that you should. But diet is a very important point in our A to G game. E, and again, Julia and Robin talked about this, is human beings are social animals. Some of us more than others, but the E is really engage with family, with friends, with significant others, and particularly those people you like the most. You might have a sibling that you don't really get along with so well. It's okay to connect with them, but be honest with yourself. Who are the people that just make you feel good when you talk to them, that you look forward when the phone rings and it's them, or you've arranged for them to have a Zoom so you can see each other? Again, the idea of keeping things fun, but staying connected. And whether it's with a spiritual community, or you have a bunch of buddies that you get with to enjoy sporting events or going out to music, but being connected with people so that you don't feel isolated and alone, and you feel supported. And you feel supported not only by getting support, but sharing support with others. It's amazing how good people feel when they're able to go out and get involved. And we've seen this at Western, and many of you know we have a COVID vaccine clinic, and we've had a lot of volunteers. I really thank the community for people who've come in and worked side by side with our students and our faculty and our staff at Western U. And it was so completely gratifying to me as the provost and as a clinician and clinical researcher to see how much fun people were having, being with each other, supporting each other. And it really is very difficult, if not impossible, to overemphasize the important role of fun. Now, fun, again, has to be healthy fun. So if someone says, yeah, I have fun when I go out and drink too much, well, that's not the kind of healthy fun we're looking for. But we're looking for something that you can really enjoy in a healthy way. Going out to a meal with your friends, maybe instead of going to a fast food place, if you go there, maybe say, well, let's do something out of the ordinary. Let's order the salad today. Or if we get the fried chicken sandwich, maybe take the bread off and take the topping off. But again, doing things together. And data shows, if you look at the brain and neuroimaging, and I've done a lot of my recent work over the last 5 or 6 years looking at how the brain reacts, when people are having fun and laughing, they're not lighting up the parts of the brain that we see when people are depressed or anxious. And it just makes good sense. The G is for a good night's sleep. And again, we've seen in many of the blue zones that Julia mentioned, that people are getting a good night's rest. Now, in our society, it's not always so easy to take a mid-afternoon siesta or a nap, but there is very, very good data demonstrating that when we have good sleep, our brain kind of flushes out some things that aren't particularly good for brain functioning. And so people say, well, what's a good night's sleep? Is it 6 hours? Is it 8 hours? Is it 10 hours? And the answer to that is really a very simple one. It really has less to do with how much time you're in bed and a whole lot more to do with how you feel in the morning. So most people, it's in the 7 to 8 hour range, but it varies. But what is important is when you get up in the morning, when you have to get up, can you answer the question, I feel rested, I feel ready to start the day. If you feel rested and ready to go, then chances are you had a good night's sleep. Even if you went to bed at 10 o'clock and you didn't get up till 6:30 or 7, if you wake up and you don't feel like you're rested at all, it probably wasn't a very good night's sleep. And there's been a lot of work done on the quality of sleep. And it turns out quality of sleep is probably a whole lot more important than quantity. Although sleep deprivation is a significant stressor. As we all know, when we were in school or we were having work odd shifts where we weren't getting good sleep, that really is a very toxic thing, not only for our emotional state, but for our physical state as well. I think it's important that we try to focus on the positive side. And this sounds so simple, but it's amazing. So it turns out that when we're down, when we're stressed, when we're anxious, our brain tends to activate those things that make us feel that way. If you ever notice when you're depressed, all you can think about is the things that kind of get you down. Or when you're anxious, it's really hard to think about anything other than the things that make you feel anxious. And that's, again, been well studied. And for some reason, that's the brain kind of the way it works. So when you're feeling blue or overwhelmed, one of the little tricks that I've used with patients and with athletes I've worked with over the years is before you're feeling that way, when you're feeling good, write down on a little slip of paper the things that make you happy, things that you're thankful for, things that really make life worth living. Fold them up and put them into a cup. And when you're starting to feel yourself feeling down or overwhelmed, just like when you get a Chinese food and you open up the fortune cookie to read your fortune, pick out one of those things that you wrote and read it to yourself out loud. And maybe it's your family, maybe it's your loved ones, maybe it's the community that you're a part of, maybe it's, you fill in the blank, but something that is important for you. When you're able to focus on those things, it's amazing how anxiety and depression sometimes will kind of float away a little bit. there's a whole kind of field of psychology called cognitive behavioral therapy. This was developed by a guy named Aaron Beck back in the early 1960s, 1961. And what it's really based on, you've probably heard about CBT if you look at the forms of psychotherapy. And one of the real kind of cornerstones of CBT is challenging automatic negative thoughts. So what do we mean by that? So I had a bad day at work, so that must mean I'm a bad worker or my coworkers don't like me. That would be that automatic negative thought. Certainly in an academic institution, students do less than they expected to on an examination, and they go, and the automatic negative thought is, I'm never going to be a good practitioner. I'm just stupid. I'm wasting my parents' money, and I shouldn't be here. And what CBT says is challenge those thoughts. Not to say they're not there, but to say, well, maybe another explanation is maybe I didn't study as much as I should have. Doesn't mean I'm going to be a bad student or I'm not a good student. Maybe the professor didn't teach it particularly well. Again, the idea of CBT is to see, is there potentially another explanation rather than that automatic negative one? And again, you know, since 1961, we've seen tens of thousands of papers written about the idea that challenging those automatic thoughts can play an important role in getting us back on track, as it were, emotionally and physically. Some of the things are getting better, but you know, we need to stay focused. So yes, we have vaccines. This is a great thing. I think, you know, and we're so proud and pleased that we were able to be a vaccine center right there at Western U, in addition to other sites that are opening up. You know, the large site at right near Laverne, right at the convention, at the Pomona centers, and some of the hospitals. I think it's important that we keep wearing our masks and the appropriate distancing. Again, there's things we can feel good about, but what we can really feel good is making sure we continue to do those things that are going to allow us to get back to a lifestyle that many of us are really, really missing. So to end my talk, I wanted to thank you all, and I'm looking forward to hearing the last presentations. But the real important things, the real take homes for me are: be safe and well, be happy, and know that you are loved by probably many people in your life. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Barron. That was fantastic. If we could, couple points of order. You might have noticed that Julie put in the chat. If you have questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat right now. We're trying to adjust our time a little bit on the fly here. So if we could jump back to Dr. Drybelbus and let her finish what she started with her chat, and then we'll move to Dr. Wallstrom, and hopefully be able to get our group to interact a little bit at the end with your questions. So Robin, would you like to pick up where you left off?
Sure. I hope it wasn't anything I said. Pushed everybody off the call. Sorry about that. But glad to see everybody back. So just a review of where we were. I was going into our culture at Comp Northwest and the larger Western University of Health Sciences. It's a play on that Medwell, mindfulness and exercise and diet through work engagement and lifelong living.
Dr. Robin, I'm
Yeah.
interrupting. This is Julie Wheeler.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Dr. David, would you stop sharing your screen? It's at the top of the banner. Yay! Thank you, sir. Sorry for interrupting.
No worries. I live, as many of us do, in the world of Zoom. And so technology sometimes can be our friend and maybe not so much of our friend, but no worries at all. So that Medwell culture at Western University of Health Sciences is mindfulness, exercise and diet through work engagement and lifelong learning. We have to continue to learn on the go, and we have to continue to engage in each of those things. And so we took a page out of the Blue Zones playbook a while back when we were creating this Medwell process. And what that was is you have to put things in front of people or else they don't know that they should engage in it. And so the page from the Blue Zones is make the healthy choice the easy choice. And so that's what we do on campus is we use that MedWell to create daily, weekly, and monthly experiences where the students and anybody who walks in the building can actually engage in what we are doing from a wellness standpoint. And so we have Mindfulness Mondays, which is all about, we have mindfulness, meditation activities, yoga sometimes, Wellness Wednesdays, which is all about nutrition. And really what we eat, it actually informs our genetic expression. And so nutrition is a topic in and of itself, but along those lines, we have gatherings of people coming together and sharing a meal, breaking bread together, because it brings in not just nutrition, but also community, which is another piece of that Blue Zones construct. And then Nutrition and Medicine, that's the lecture series that we started way back in the day that Jeff talked about. And funny enough, or interesting enough, I should say, it's a monthly lecture. And the most recent lecture, which was mid-March, was actually Dr. Aisha Sherzai, who's a neurologist and neuroscientist and a nutritionist from Loma Linda, California. So just up the road from Pomona. And so that's Wellness Wednesday. And then Fitness Friday is maybe my favorite, and it's getting people moving. Sometimes the dean comes down and joins in the activities, but it's making exercise and physical activity kind of playful and fun, which is what David was just talking about. You have to enjoy what you're doing, otherwise you're just not going to do it. And so that's the construct of this culture of wellness on campus. And so that was our internal self-reflection of what can we do to make ourselves healthy before we're going to affect anybody outside of ourselves. And so then once we had this going and it was successful and people were engaging in it, what happened was quite fortuitous, actually, for the community as well as for Comp Northwest. So a few years ago, the Blue Zones project that Julia talked so much about, and what the Blue Zones project was doing that external research in the world to come up with these 5 communities. But then the Blue Zones project actually took those commonalities that we're seeing in those 5 communities and basically packaged them together. And that is the Blue Zones project. And so what they wanted to see is, can we take a community that isn't a Blue Zone and make them healthier? That is the Blue Zones project. And a couple of years back, the Blue Zones project was looking for a second community in the state of Oregon. We already had one. And so they put out a call for applications. And so many communities and it couldn't be county. It was actually this small community. Put in their applications, like over 100. Towns put in their application. We were actually chosen as a finalist. And before we were chosen as a finalist and went through that process, it was a years-long application process, which required that we had a conversation across the community, from the restaurants to the grocery stores, to the faith-based community, to the educators, and just the people who lived and existed in the community of Lebanon. And so that was really a neat process, because people who may not have known each other came together for that common goal to become a Blue Zones project. And fast forward, after the site visit in the finalists process, we were actually chosen as the Blue Zone, the next Blue Zone community in the state of Oregon. And the way that they work is they come into your community and help you make the changes that you want to make. They don't force anything on you. They have you do that self-reflection of, how can we help you get to your goals? And so part of that is they come in for 3 years to help with that process, but you also have to come to the plate with some financial sort of skin in the game. And the Lebanon community being such a small community, we actually couldn't raise the necessary funds to become that Blue Zones. But that's not the end of the story. What we came away with was not the title a Blue Zones community. We created something different and really like grassroots. We call it Live Longer Lebanon. And we still are in existence today. And it is grassroots. It's the people who came together to fill out that Blue Zones application for a common goal, to walk that journey together. And that's exactly what you are doing with Pomona Reimagining. And as Julia and the other folks were sort of explaining this to me a few weeks ago, it made me think so much about the journey that we made in Lebanon that continues to this day and has allowed Western University of Health Sciences and Comp Northwest to not just be in this town or the city of Lebanon, but really to be part of the town. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your discovery process and endeavoring to do this really, really important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Dennis, it's last but certainly not least and long awaited now. If you'd like to jump in here, by all means, please do.
Well, you just turned your screen off, Dennis. And you're muted. I'll give a little, Dennis is going to be talking about spirituality. He has a private practice in Claremont. He is a previous pastor, and he deals with the whole person when they come into his office. So people might present depression. That could be related to the physicality. It could be related to the mentality. It could be related to spirituality. So Dennis he's a curious seeker when someone comes in presenting a problem, wanting to find out what the roots of the problem are. Dennis, I can only chomp at the bit here for so long. I'm hoping you'll pop in here. Dennis, there's a mute and a start video. Hopefully, something that maybe is very interesting to you. Dennis is a Seventh-day Adventist, and he was raised in one of these blue zones. Well, not actually Loma Linda, but in a very strict, there he is, twice. Okay. So Dennis will be speaking about spirituality. Take it away, Dennis.
I was starting to feel a little unwelcome. You know, I've been kicked out twice. You know, I'm going to move pretty rapidly because I don't know when the sword will fall again. But I'm very happy to be with this dynamic community. I appreciate you all very much. Let me start with a general statement. And I think people would respond to it in various individual ways, but here's the statement. Light is very, very good for us. And I'm reminded of this often by my wife, who will invite me out into the sunlight almost every day to get 20 minutes of good, warm sunlight, because it's good for us. It is good for metabolizing vitamin D, and also light is just very good for our mood. It is good for depression. There have been light boxes employed to help people find relief from depression. And just enjoying the sunlight is really good for us. I use in my practice various forms of light to help with emotional and neurological issues. There are applications of light in the infrared and near infrared spectrum that help with anxiety and depression and basically neurologically wake us up. This light speaks to the little energy factories of our cells, and when that happens, when it's applied to our brains, there's research going on now as to how it improves cognitive functioning. and improves mood. So in a very literal sense, light in its different modalities across the spectrum is very, very good for us. We can also think of it in a metaphorical sense, that when someone is enlightened, we generally think of that as a good thing. That when someone, well, as in Buddhism, when someone is luminous, they have developed and they have become a more insightful person. In virtually all the religions of the world, there is this metaphor of the light, the divine light, but also the human light, that we become carriers of light, or we become radiant. And this is a way of talking about it that I think we all understand and get, that when a person is radiant, when someone is luminous, we think of that in positive terms. Well, when we incorporate into our lives more than just a physical level of existence, when we incorporate into our lives a sense of the divine light, and we seek light ourselves, we seek to become enlightened, it is an important step, and it's a positive thing as we talk about different aspects of good and flourishing living. In the Hebrew Christian tradition, receiving the light of God is celebrated. In the Psalms, it is said, because of your light, God, we see the light. And in the prophet Isaiah, he says, you arise, shine, for your light has come. We can be people of light. We can be radiant people who bless others by our interactions and by our presence. But this does not happen by simply rolling out of bed in the morning. We can prepare ourselves to be receptive to light as we understand it, again, in various philosophical or religious traditions. And one of the things that I do in my work is I help to prepare people neurologically to receive light of understanding, of better relationships, and so on. And I wanted to share with you just a couple of moments, without saying much more about this, an exercise that can be useful for enhancing our receptivity. When I'm receptive to the light, the divine light, I'm also more receptive to the light that comes from you. It tends to work all directions. And openness to the light is openness, and good things follow from that. Since part of our brain descends down into our gut, to have a whole approach for making myself receptive and open that takes into account my whole body is important. And so for those of you who are willing, let me just take a couple of minutes and lead you through an exercise. I'll tell people I try never to ask people to do things I don't do myself. And I've been really blessed to practice this mode of receptivity for a number of years now. And it starts with a certain kind of breathing that Dr. David referred to, as well as using the imagining power of the mind to again enhance our receptivity and our openness. And those who are willing with me, just make yourself comfortable and reasonably relaxed. And let your breath flow through the very center of you. In fact, just imagine it flowing through your heart. Let it start way down deep at your tailbone and flow on up through the very center of you, as if you were breathing right through your heart at a slow, easy pace, about 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. Slow and easy, breathing right through your heart. And just have the sense and imagine that you have lots of space inside. That inside, as your breath flows through the very center of you, there's lots of room. You have the sense that there's lots of room inside to grow, to learn, and just to be. And in this moment, if you're willing, people, of course, have different ways of viewing the light of the universe or the divine light. In recovery, we talk about the God of our understanding. However you're comfortable, in this moment, welcome the light to fill the space inside of you. As Jesus said in his great message of Matthew 5, 6, and 7, if your eye is focused and healthy, it, as the lamp of your body, will allow your whole body to be filled with light. And so in this moment, as you just stay in that easy rhythm of breathing and aware of that space inside, welcome the light as you understand the great light to be, to shine deeply in the very center of you. Let that light fill your whole body. And just ask, every dark and shadowed place inside of me, let it be flooded with your light. Let me be filled with your light. Again, as it's said in the Psalms, look to him, and you yourselves be radiant. Yes, in this moment, let the light fill me. And let me in this moment receive whatever you have for me. Let me learn. Let me understand. Let me be enlightened. And so just enjoy this moment for just a moment longer. This sense of breathing easily right through your heart. This posture of readiness, having a sense of spaciousness inside, and the sense of being filled with light, being willing and open and eager to be filled with light. Arise, shine, for your light has come. And just know that after this brief moment, at any time in your day, first thing in the morning or late at night, this space is available to you. You can make yourself open to the light. You can bring yourself to a place of centeredness and peacefulness and enlarge the space within your life and within your being. This is for you. This is available for you at any time. And just remember, light is very, very good for us.
Thank you, Dr. Dennis. That was something I needed. Maybe all of us needed after all that stress of getting back into this Zoom room. So beautiful downshifting, one of the 9 common denominators, the downshift. Jeff, did you want to, I'm just noticing our time. We have 9 minutes left. And so I'm not quite sure how we recoup what we did, what we said we would do.
We did have, I mean, there were a couple of things in the chat. Folks, Nora, we got your message. We'll get some resources up on the website for you. I think we had someone a little earlier who wanted to ask a question. Is Marcus Molina out there?
I'm right here.
Hi, Marcos. Did you have a question for our panelists?
It's not necessarily a question. It was more of a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. I just want to start off by saying I appreciate all the speakers tonight. So I'm an urban planner working in public health here in the city of Pomona that specializes in substance abuse prevention. So public health is what I eat and breathe every day. Something that stood out to me today from the conversation about health and wellness is that today was spoken as like a personal choice. To understand Pomona in its context is that this city is trying to like fix and rehabilitate from the heavy redlining and historical and systemic racism that Brown, Black, and Indigenous folk have been battling here. When it comes to health and wellness, it is not a personal choice for Pomona residents. Pomona residents like myself are facing food deserts. This whole city is a food desert. I don't have access to greens. I don't have access to vegetables. And I'm privileged in the sense I have a college education and I can afford a car and I can afford to pay for these things. There's not enough green space for Pomona residents in the city. We're in a deficit, in a green deficit. So to understand Pomona and how residents are experiencing health and wellness here, it's to understand its historical context and how the challenges that current residents are facing. Pomonans aren't unhealthy by choice, but because government officials, decision makers, and advocates are trying to undo decades worth of systemic racism here. Pomona residents don't have the opportunity to make salads or to avoid fast food when our main corridors are plagued by these businesses instead of farmers markets and grocery stores. Listening to the presentations today, I couldn't find myself to connect to any of the presenters today. I was really out of touch with the community that I work and live with. If we're looking at Pomona, it's important to understand the people that live here and the community and the challenges that they face every day. It's important to understand the environment that they're in, the built environment that they face, whether they can walk down the street and exercise. Pomona residents don't have that luxury. And it's important to understand its historical context when we're looking at redlining, or we're looking at whether residents are living in a homogeneous population. Pomona residents are diverse. We don't have the opportunity to go out and buy what we want and to just choose to be happy. So I just really urge the presenters to do their research about the communities that they're presenting to make sure that they're connecting with the residents and the community that they're presenting to. Because as a public health worker, as an urban planner, today I felt disconnected from all the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcos. And I apologize that you felt disconnected. One of the things two of the things we're looking at is environment and lifestyle. And environment, my lifestyle depends on the environment that I'm living in. So that's key, Marcos, it's very key. So point well taken.
Yeah, thank you, Marcos. And there'll be further opportunities to expand on. We are running a little bit short of time, and sorry about that. But I did want to mention that we'll be distributing a link to a survey next week for everybody who's attending our sessions tonight. asking for your thoughts about the presentation, similar to what Marco said, or any other thoughts you have about it, what you found useful, what maybe wasn't as useful, how to put some of these ideas into action with your own constituencies, and asking for some other data that we're going to use to further develop a community approach to wellness. And comments like Marcos's and some of the other folks who have asked questions and made comments are really helpful. So please keep your eye peeled for that. The link will be going out to everybody next week.
And the other thing, because we want this webinar to be useful not only for you individually, there's a community aspect. So Jeff's giving this survey that will be helpful in establishing kind of the community needs. But individually, there's an invitation for you, and this is called a power call. So if you have seen maybe some of those, the 9 common denominators that maybe you could work into your life, and you haven't been, but you know you ought to, you know how that goes. There's this thing called a power call. And what a power call is you call up, and it's a 4-minute call 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. And you say, so let's say it's mine. I want downshift, I want physicality, and I want nutrition. And so I'm going to meditate, I'm going to do weights, and I'm going to eat beans. And so I would call and say, yesterday I was 3 for 3. I did all those things. Today I promise that I will walk in nature. I will do 20 minutes of weights, and I will have beans in my salad. And then the next person goes. And so this is a way to support each other in our goals. So if you are interested in joining a 1-month power call, this would support your health goals. Put your phone number and your name in the chat, and we'll collect those, and we'll make some power call groups where you can actually take 1 month and get some support in an individual 3 of the areas that you choose, of your choosing. So there you have it. We thank you for your interest and engagement in this webinar, and we hope that we can be healthier individually and also as a community. So we welcome your input, and you'll be getting a follow-up email. Again, I apologize for the technical problems. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest. We are going to let the panelists hang around. So if you have an individual question for the panelists, you can stay after and ask those panelists a question. So for the rest of you, good night. So if you would like to stay and ask a question, then you would just unmute and then say Dr. Robin or Dr. David or Dr. Dennis and ask a question. Please do. Oh, and I did mention that there is a power call in Spanish. Pardon me, I'm a little flustered. There will be a power call in Spanish. And Angelica, we will have the recording of this meeting and you can watch it later, so not to worry. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists?
Well, I don't necessarily have a question, but I do have a comment. I'm at the middle. I think I'm at 40 years old right now. I remember being younger and thinking, why don't adults just get to the answer of things? Like there's so many problems, and let's just do something about it. But now, as I'm turning into an adult, I understand that it's much more complicated than just creating, a movement of solutions. So I feel like I'm in the middle, because I do agree with some of the comments, however, I also agree with some of you guys as well, like with the light and breathing and practicality. It's like a long journey to wellness. And all of us in this world, we have our challenges. So again, I just thought I would throw that out there. You know, I feel like as human beings, we could do more, but as I get older, it just seems I have to learn how to be patient. So it's kind of strange. And that's all I had to say. Thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you, Andy. Great to have you here.
Looks like we have, Alex, do you have a question?
Yes, I wonder if maybe Robin could comment, because it sounds like she was part of a community in Lebanon where they kind of designed their, I know that it was their own version of Live Longer Lebanon. And I just wanted to know, well, how did they get the people who actually live in the community to be active in designing it versus the institutions? Because I think Marcos raised a good question, and maybe the way you involve the community could be what we could do here in Pomona when we build our path.
Sure, absolutely. And I am very sensitive to what Marco said. And what I learned from that process of going through it is everybody has a different journey, right? And my issues aren't somebody else's issues and vice versa. And so that year-long application process required that we actually came together. So we put out the call to the community, and it was all comers. Everybody was invited to come be a part of the conversation. And there were very specific people that had to be invited, but the conversation that came about was exactly what Marcos was saying, is you couldn't uncover or really think about what the thrust of the community's needs were unless you have a conversation with the community. And so that's what the process gave to us. It was really truly a gift, because every single person around that table had a voice in the conversation. And so it allowed us to pivot when we needed to. That is why, I mean, 4 or 5 years later, Live Longer Lebanon is still thriving and solving the needs of the community, right? And Lebanon is different than Pomona, but the process I don't think is different. We too are a food desert. We live right next to Benton County, which has the highest per capita, what do you call it? Like salary or, right? People make
Income.
more.
Mhm.
Yeah, income, thank you. We are the lowest in Lynn County. And so there is this huge discordance between neighboring counties. And so there are people that don't have cars or transportation. And it really requires that we are sensitive to the fact that we can't really talk about what I like to call the lifestyle determinants of health until we solve for the social determinants of health, right? Do people have a roof over their head? Do they have a job? Do they have a support system and a means to get food? Those are pressing in the front of everybody's vision. And when we start talking about these other things, they're peripheral to those really important things that we all deal with on a daily basis. And so I guess I would answer to say every community is unique. You have to be sensitive and have all voices around the table and understand that people are going to be less concerned about exercise if they can't put food on the table.
Thank you, Dr. Robin. And Natalie, I see your hand raised and you put something in the chat. Do you want to just speak out?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I think I wanted to echo some of what is going on in the chat and that Marco's raised, and thank you, Robin, for bringing up some of those what we call, or what certain groups call social determinants of health, and like you said, lifestyle determinants of health. I think to Andy's point earlier, right, there is the importance of having that freedom to make your individual decisions around your health. But what takes priority? Sometimes, you know, we talk about stress being one of those things that really affects our individual health, but really, to me, then the root causes of, well, what's causing your stress? Is it so much of you having a skewed perspective of the world, or is it because you're working 3 jobs and having to raise your children and you're an immigrant to a new country? So I think, I guess the feedback, similar to Marcos, is if we're having a conversation around a community, it's contextualizing our community. What are the health wellness hazards that our community is facing that make it distinct from other sites? You know, I would say that in Pomona, the needs are very distinct even from our neighboring cities of Laverne and Claremont. So when we're promoting wellness choices, what are achievable wellness choices for our community? But also, are we hearing from them? What can we actually do? You know, I think that that's all really important to have in a conversation around reimagining Pomona.
Great. Beautiful. And you did ask, what are their education levels? And is that about Lebanon, Oregon?
Yeah, I think Nora asked, so again, if we're going to compare, again, a great example of Lebanon. And then at the beginning, we also heard about these communities that are some of the most well communities in the world, right? I think, how alike are they to Pomona? Like, what is allowing them to achieve wellness that maybe is not present in Pomona, or maybe they are really similar to Pomona? You know, maybe it is that they have this economic and they're very diverse racially and economically, and they also have similar education levels, similar conflicts that are keeping similar, and yet, but this community can do it and Pomona can't. So what's the missing factor, right? I think it would make sense to compare maybe communities that reflect Pomona's demographics to see, like, oh, what could this community do that Pomona hasn't done yet?
Well, I'm gonna take a wild guess, Natalie. I'm gonna guess that the common factor is less stress. What you got? Right, when we got less stress in life, things are smoother. But maybe I'm wrong, I
Nora,
don't know.
yes, Nora.
Thanks. I'm an info geek, so I'm looking at Wikipedia. Pomona's population alone. So if we just talk like populations, the thing about the blue zone communities seems to me that they're all relatively small. And so Pomona's at what, 170,000, 175,000. Lebanon, Ohio, 2019 estimate, 17,417 people. So we're talking about 10% of the size. And of those, Hispanic or Latino of any race were 5.8% of the population. This is my struggle with starting with individual determinants as a focus for programs rather than social determinants. Pomona Reimagining has brought all sorts of interesting things to our attention, but what it hasn't done is to look at really what's come up here through what Marcus began conversing about. I'd love to hear that conversation. I'd love to have people talk about what our social determinants are rather than coming in and telling us how we can improve our lives when what the folks that I walk with and work with, most of them don't have phones. I mean, nice idea to do a power call, but if your family doesn't have a phone, if you don't have a phone, how do you do that? And I can go on and on, but you hear what I'm saying. I'm trying to be constructive here. I would love to see us focusing on those things that are like root problems in our root challenges in our community.
Thank you, Nora.
Mhm.
Alex, do you still have your hand raised, or is that from an old question? I don't know what the waving, does that,
No,
it's
no,
a
no,
no.
that was an old racing.
Any other questions for our panelists? Other comments? Okay. Well, with that, I think we are complete. So thank you for your time. This is good, good food for thought, literally. Good food for us. So, oh, Andy, you have a race? No, you're just saying goodbye. Okay, you enjoyed
Thank
the
you
meeting.
all.
Okay.
Very
See you later.
Yeah.
I appreciate spending the time with all you guys. Thanks.
All right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Andy. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.